All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to the Women in Tech / LinkedIn panel brought to you by Women in IST and the Offices of Career Solutions and Corporate Engagement, Inclusion and Diversity Engagement and Development and Alumni Relations. My name is Jane Schneider and I'm a junior studying Applied Data Sciences. I'm the Vice President of Women in IST and I will be one of your moderators for today. We're pleased to have you join us for this discussion and brings together some of our female IST alum to share support and insight into their STEM careers, and we will begin in a few moments.
So hello, my name is Jen Foley. I am a co-moderator for today's session. I'm a senior in cybersecurity analytics and operations, and I'm the current president of Women in IST. And I'd like to mention that we are recording this session today, just so you guys are aware. This is WIST's 9th Lean-In panel, which is based on the national Lean-In movement from the best-selling author and Facebook COO, Sheryl Sandberg. The movement aims to empower women to lean into their ambitions. We are excited this year to be a part of the IST Identity Talk series. Now let's meet the panelists. First, we have Janay Coles, a 2015 graduate from the College of IST and a Senior Cyber Analyst at Textron. Next, we have Shelly Gasparin, a 2006 graduate of IST and currently a Consulting Solutions Transformation Director in the technology sector of PwC. Also on our panel today is Angela Govila, a 2006 IST grad and an Executive Director and Head of Product Payments and Banking Platform at JPMorgan Chase. Finally, we have Neha Sharma, a 2017 graduate from the IST and a 2018 Master of Professional Studies graduate from the Spiel College of Business. Welcome everyone and thank you for being a part of such an amazing panel. If you could each share a little bit about yourself and then we'll start with some questions. Janay, we'll start with you.
Good evening, everyone. As she said, my name is Janay Coles. I graduated Penn State in 2015. I currently work for Textron. I've been working there since my internship. I've held multiple roles throughout the years, and it's been a great company to work for. A little bit about myself: I love to read, spend time with family, and just hang out and have a good time. Happy to be here, guys.
Shelly, now to you.
Yep, happy to go next. Shelly Gasparin, very excited to be here today as well. Way back in 2004, 5, 6 or so, I was the web chair of WIST. And so I'm always happy to see WIST events coming up back when that was a relevant title. But as they mentioned, I work in PwC's consulting practice, so an area we call customer transformation. So I help clients largely in the tech sector deal with disruption in their business. So over the past 15 years, helped clients manage the people, process, and enabling technologies that kind of intersect to run their businesses, and have always enjoyed the evolving nature of consulting. On the personal side, with PwC, I moved from the East Coast, starting in our Philadelphia office, and about 8 years ago moved out to Seattle, where I'm based now. And I live with my husband and 2 sons. So I've got a 6-month-old and a 3.5-year-old, and came back from my 6-month parental leave just a couple weeks ago. So still fresh off that, and spent the last month of it in Hawaii, which was pretty amazing. So yeah, super excited for this discussion and excited to be here.
Awesome. Congrats, Shelly. I didn't know about the 6-month-old. That's awesome.
Threw it in there just to keep things lively. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for being here today. Thank you to Jane and Jen and Kim and Rita for organizing. Angela Govila, I graduated in 2005. Shell and I actually were part of certain groups together. I think WIST was one of them. So I currently work with JPMorgan Chase. I lead a product management unit for embedded banking. And I've been with this company for about 3.5 years. Since I graduated in 2005, I've been with 4 large organizations, GE, Ernst & Young, Capital One, and JPMorgan Chase. The thread that's been common, of course, is working in technology, starting out with smaller programs and now leading fairly large initiatives. And at the heart of solving customer problems using the latest in tech. On the personal side, we are based in Dallas. I actually moved from Seattle to Dallas for this role with JPMorgan. And I would like to say I'm a new mom too. My baby's around 22 months, but nothing like a 6-month-old. And really working on balancing work and life, and raising a child through the pandemic. And most recently, trying to become a very active Peloton mom. So that's what's happening on this side of the world. Look forward to the discussion today. I think there's some really meaty topics. Lean In, when it first came out, was instrumental to my thinking about a decade ago. So I'm really excited about the conversation today.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Neha Sharma. Just as I was introduced, I graduated from College of IST in 2017. I too was also an active member of WIST, so it's always nice to be back. I did stay back for another year to complete my master's in business management in 2018. After I did that, I joined IBM within federal space in DC in 2018, and kind of have continued to really build my skill set in business analytics and business management. And I currently am a senior management. On the personal side of things, I love to travel. I'm currently in California, so I'm enjoying the sun as I am attending this event. But I also generally like to give back to the community, so I've done a lot of give back. And I also have kind of continued with my career interests, getting like different certifications. So in 2020, I also went and pursued my PMP. So I would love to share that thoughts with you guys as well.
Thank you all. Wow, what incredible accomplishments y'all have. I'm really excited to hear more. So just some quick housekeeping notes. If you have any questions for the panelists, just feel free to share them in the Q&A. We will be checking that regularly, and we will do our best to answer all of your questions. So now for the first question. 9 years ago, Sheryl Sandberg wrote the book Lean In when she was the chief operating officer of Facebook. Prior to that, she held the role of vice president of global online sales and operations at Google. And throughout the book, she shares many stories of the women who paved the way for her to be in these positions. So who or what empowers you to lean into your ambitions of pursuing a career in technology?
Angela, I think, go ahead.
Oh, no, Shelly, I was just going to say I could start. The two people that inspired me for my love of and passion of IT would be first my dad. My dad has been in the IT field since I can remember. And then my high school guidance counselor, Miss Amy Alexander, she really pushed me to stay with the tech classes, and she after I took one computer programming class and I was like, I'm done. Like, it was fun while it lasted, but I don't think this is what I want to do. And she said, no, you're going to continue to do it, and literally changed my schedule without me saying yes. And I'm forever grateful to her for doing that, because I found my passion and drive for my career. So I would definitely have to give that to my dad and my high school guidance counselor.
I'd like to chime in too, and I think my story is a little bit similar too. So my dad is a physician, but he also, in the 80s, he had access to a computer, and then growing up in the 90s, I grew up in the Middle East, and I started helping my dad by really learning PowerPoint, somehow just getting exposed to like Windows 95 and just spending so much time on the computer. Like in my teen years, I knew that I wanted to do something with technology, because building things in PowerPoint, just putting together nice presentations, then using Excel, and then, I loved solitaire as a kid growing up. And the power of just turning ideas around into something concrete and tangible, I found that as an outlet for my creativity. So when it came time to decide what to do for undergrad, it was going to be technology. I joined Penn State in the College of Engineering. I moved from the Middle East for my undergrad, joined the College of Engineering. And being an immigrant kid in central Pennsylvania, I was completely out of place, as one would imagine. And my first semester, I just had no idea that in the US, when a whole class isn't doing well, they curve the grade, which is, like a B would turn into an A-, which is not something where I grew up was the case. And so I thought I wasn't doing well in class, and having just been somebody who does well in school, it was a hard adjustment firstly. So I started looking at, what is it that I'm missing here? Discovered, at the time it was called the School of IST. Stan Supon was the assistant dean, and I spent a lot of time trying to understand what the curriculum was. I absolutely loved the fact it was interdisciplinary, and it brought the people component to technology and the business component. So I took a couple classes, and then I just fell in love with the curriculum completely, and I switched over. And so my, what started out with just spending time on Windows and Microsoft and helping my dad out turned into what's been a 15-year career at this point. So I just find it to be a great outlet to turn ideas into action. Neha, Shelley, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think, just thinking of IST and where it sits on that intersection of business and technology. I also was really excited about that concept, even back, I think when it was kind of a newer idea at the time. I think, I'm just love of tinkering and, trying out new automations and better ways of doing things. I think, even today, like everyone with their smart homes and, all the gadgets and devices, like I feel like is the great entryway into that space. I'm looking at my little Alexa staring at me right now, but yeah, I think just having, how does technology affect so many aspects of our lives, and just being able to use that in a way that optimizes things and, and hopefully betters lives, or, at a minimum processes and businesses.
I think I'll just real quickly answer. So for me, it's been definitely family, but I grew up in Central PA. Actually, Penn State happens to be my hometown. So in high school, I reconnected with some professors at College of IST during a field trip, and I just kind of went ahead and talked about my passion of technology. And from there, was able to do a research assistant position. And without knowing, I just kind of fell in love with College of IST. But I also, when I joined Penn State, I went into College of Science thinking that that would be kind of my way of finding an impact in the tech world within the lens of medicine. Realized that was not kind of my dream land or dream path, but then I came back to IST and it felt like home, and just kind of reconnected with that interest and passion of technology with the hopes of helping people and businesses solve real-time problems. And so from that, I kind of went and decided, my father has a really very much business and analytics background. Didn't realize business was in me either, but then that's kind of why I pursued business as well. And then I kind of just realized, consulting was just that perfect fit in terms of building that interest of technology, data trends, and then kind of really learning about how to impact these solutions that will make things better for everyone. So from that aspect, that I think has been a strong suit, and it will continue as I grow my career.
Okay, great. Awesome answers. I'm going to now pivot to Jen. She's going to ask the next question.
So I would like to ask, what, if any, did you experience or observe as the biggest challenges as a female student in technology? I'm going to go to Shelley first if you have a response to it.
Yeah, I think, the diversity of our teams, big or small, I think continues to evolve. I think, remembering back in, even IST like 101, just looking around the room and seeing, what do these people look like you, or, look like groups you may identify with. I think, in IST, that was often a very small minority were women. And I'd say, and oftentimes that translates into the workforce too. And so I think one of the things I've learned through that is, just to lean into the things that make you unique and the perspectives that you bring with that. So, I think being self-aware to acknowledge, who is in the room and what roles do they play, but also what role do you play? And, I think one of the themes that I loved in Lean In was when, Cheryl was encouraging you to take the seat at the table and not sit on the sidelines or not sit in the back of the room. And so, I think regardless of who's in that room, and maybe you are in a minority in some identified sense, but just making sure that you take up the space that you deserve, because you're there for a reason, so know what it is.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Shelley. You couldn't have put it any better. I would say as a student, I felt like in class, just automatically the whole taking of the notes when you're doing a group project and getting the group organized, and like for some reason all the administrative things fell on female students. That was one of my observations, and that also then carries over into the workforce as well, where when you're in a team meeting, for some reason it's the woman and the most junior person in the room, or most likely the woman in the room, gets allocated the, hey, can you just take the notes, right? And one of the things around that now over the years I've learned to do is we rotate on who takes notes and send it out, including the senior most person and the junior most person. So it's one of those very active things that as a manager that I want to make sure that precedent doesn't get set. So along with the comment from Shelley around making sure that you are taking the spot you deserve and very much sharing your opinions, it's the little subtleties that get unnoticed. And if you can correct those biases through different tactics, like this one example of note taking, that would go a long way for your colleagues as well.
Yeah, I think, having seen that so much, I think, even if you enjoy those tasks, like I think sometimes sitting on your hand, don't volunteer for it, just let somebody else speak up.
I think I would definitely agree with both you guys said. I know, so I was a security and risk analysis major, and even though that's within the College of IST, I noticed the difference between the women in my IST classes versus the women in my SRA classes, and it was significantly less. Like sometimes it would literally just be me. So definitely, like Shelley said, lean in, make your presence known, volunteer for those projects, put your opinions out there, make sure they know that you're here, you won it, you earned it, you can do it too.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so I will move on to the next question. So how would you talk about the value of diverse identities within the workspace and within like your specific area of the tech industry? I'm gonna first direct the question to Shelley and Angela because they're the earliest graduates on the panel.
You want to go first this time, Angela?
Yeah, sure. First few graduates in the program also translates to just more tenure. So thank you, Jane, for that. It's also just experience. And we're happy to share our wisdom. I do think this is something we would have loved to hear when we were in your shoes. So I think a couple of things. So women in tech, when we were sort of starting our careers, were limited, right? There were few folks who looked like us. And the other thing that I got exposed to was I was mostly like the only person of color in certain rooms. And so very quickly I realized that I understand I'm different from everyone, all good, no problem, but there's power in being different. And that power really is that nobody else can provide the perspective I have. Nobody has lived the life you've lived. I was born in another country. I grew up in a second country. I now work in a third country. My family lives all over the globe. I rely on technology to stay connected to my loved ones, right? And so technology is like living and breathing in my life. And so as a third culture kid, no one can bring the perspective I bring, and they may bring a different perspective than me, and that's exactly what's needed. I've been with 4 large organizations, and every single company is serving clients who are very diverse. They come from all walks of life. So it is your duty to represent that point of view because nobody else will. And so I, over the years have developed a voice. Early career, I did not have it. I can tell you that. I struggled a lot where, I took Toastmasters as a way of just finding a way to communicate my messages. But eventually I realized if I don't speak up, I'm underrepresenting the customer. And that's just not the right way to serve the shareholder and your end user. And so the value of your perspective is so powerful that whatever you're working on, whether it's solving a process problem or automation or building a new product, you are going to underrepresent by not speaking up. So find power in being different. And it's really, really valuable to showcase that other people, that you can do it, and so can others. Others can also do it. So you sort of lead the way for others to then open up. Because some people just need that opening, right? Somebody has to speak up and the other person will sort of follow through. So if you can blaze the trail, do it for others as well. Shelley?
So well said. I think, your role in kind of enabling those diverse voices will obviously change, throughout your career as your role progresses too. But I think, early in your career, making sure that you're an active contributor in those conversations. And, and then I'd say as you progress in your career, and making sure you're inviting those perspectives from others in the room who maybe aren't speaking up to, because they're, everyone does bring a unique perspective. And, there's research now that shows like diverse teams outperform non-diverse teams, every single day. And so, as a company, when we're staffing projects, we are very mindful of like, what does the team dynamic look like? Both our clients expect us to bring the best of, the best experience to their problems. And certainly diverse teams do that. And, like Angela said, mimicking the diversity in that client base as well, so just making sure that you are thinking about that another kind of layer and element in the teams that you form too. So it's absolutely needed. And I think just regardless, even if you are the most junior person in the room, then you bring the most fresh perspective to a problem too. So, I think don't think because you are, less professional experience, perhaps, you are often there for a reason, because we want your fresh perspective on things. That's one of the more exciting things for us. Like when interns and new hires join, like we're really excited to have that diverse perspective, because we have been looking at this problem for a while.
Okay, great. Wow, really well said. So now let's pivot to Janay and Neha. So was your experience, you would say, similar, or is there any differences that you've kind of experienced graduating 10 years later? So we'll start off with Neha, if you're comfortable going first.
Sure. So for me, I definitely still continue to see the offset of numbers between female and male. However, there were definitely some classes where there were more females in my undergrad. In grad school, that's when I think I saw a huge impact in diversity in the terms of being able to learn from others. So the way my master's program was designed was essentially anyone with a STEM background would come and try to learn about business and how business would impact essentially that STEM area that that they were in. And for me, from one of the first women to come from IST, already with the common experience of working in diverse groups, I was able to kind of accelerate that and really just take the moment to know my strengths, but also learn from others to build my weaknesses. So from that, I think I kind of left school and with the hopes of building that more. So I've definitely seen that since I've been at IBM for 3 years now, but I still take time to really understand what value I'm bringing to the table, even if it's something that I'm experienced with, because I can still learn even if I have that knowledge. So I keep trying to have that open mind when it comes to bringing up new ideas, because essentially you never know what other doors you're opening. So it's just a great way to use that strength that you have, but also learn from others and kind of go, tackle on new ideas and build off those as well.
Okay, great. So anything to add, Janay?
I would concur with what everyone said. I know I have seen an increase in women in IT fields, but the numbers are still very low in security. A lot of times, if I go to my security conferences or my security training sessions, I'm literally one of the only females and definitely one of the only people of color there, which, you know, is still sad to say, but we're hoping, like Shelly said, we're recruiting, trying to open those doors and let people know that, you know, this field is for everyone. Anyone can do it if you have the passion and the drive to go through the classes. So I would say there's an improvement on the IT side, but security is still a little bit behind the times when it comes to women getting involved and people of color getting involved.
Okay, great. So we do have a few questions in the Q&A. So Jen, I don't know if you wanted to start off with any that you found that you'd like to talk
Yeah,
about.
I'll start off with the first one. So this is if anyone works closely with customers. Did you have any major struggles working with people so closely with your job? This person asking the question is wondering if they're gonna, what skills they're gonna need to be able to do this work, and if they're working in IST, could you still work closely with customers and interact with them? So I'll open it to the floor.
Shelly, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. I'd say, you know, client service is kind of in your blood as consultants. But I think what skills you need, I mean, I'd say like social, emotional intelligence, you know, kind of like that foray of like, how do you read a room? How do you understand what's the underlying, you know, causes of, you know, pain, struggle, those types of things that your clients are going through. I know I saw a diagram recently, it was like, you know, a circle of clients, and that circle of clients that are humans, you know, overlapping, is just recognizing that like our clients are people too. So like they have the same struggles we do, you know, and it would, you know, in the context of a global pandemic, et cetera. But just, you know, getting that kind of emotional intelligence layer of, you know, what else is happening in a given space, and how can you use that context to better serve the problem. And I think naturally, I'd say one of the things that women do pretty well is understanding those types of, you know, contextual layers. And so using that to your advantage, you know, and so, you know, how can you, you know, kind of get better personal relationships with people, and use that as a way to build trust and a way to, you know, get that additional context. I think like that's where I think being one of the few women in the room often can be an advantage, frankly, because, you know, people, for, you know, stereotypically or not, like tend to open up more to women, or, you know, the small talk kind of things, and just using that position to your advantage. So you know, I think there's obviously a personality layer in there. I think some people are, you know, more reserved or not, but I think just knowing what kind of assets you can bring to that you know, that context, and using that to your advantage. Because I think Janay's example of like, you know, her standing out in conferences and stuff, you know, like how do you use that to your advantage? Because like people probably notice her, but, you know, she should be, I'm sure she does, you know, use that as the opportunity to meet people you wouldn't have otherwise crossed paths with, or, you know, kind of stand out in a memorable way.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, as somebody who goes through the IST program, you've also, you know, along with the EQ, you've also learned about technology and how it can solve problems. So because you're working with customers so closely, you can be that translation layer between the customer on their needs and translate it to the people who are actually going to go do the hardcore development. And that translation piece is so important because the customer can't really describe what they want in great amount of detail. They just have a vision of what they want. And so you're the person who's taking the vision, creating the strategy and the plan behind it, and then working very, very closely with your development teams to get that built. So that's another thing that, you know, that you get through, I think, the curriculum, and hone the skills of the years. That would be a differentiator as well.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, so we have a question specifically for Neha. So there's a question asking why specifically you decided to go for your master's. There's someone that is like interested in the program that you pursued. So if you just wanted to talk about that for a little bit and how you experienced it.
Sure. So when I was about to finish undergrad, it was very competitive in the sense of finding a job. So I had kind of two choices. One was to pick up an internship or to continue my education. It just happened to be that the program that I attended was the first time. So I was kind of the class of the guinea pigs. But essentially it was very much in line with my interests, which was to essentially go into consulting, but really understand how I could essentially close the gap between a lot of my technical background that I had at IST and my interest in business. So once I attended that program, I very much found ways to essentially play or even speak both languages and essentially provide a much stronger story behind my interest into consulting and even other business analyst positions at that time. So for me, it was very much just kind of determining, consulting, that was my path. Now I can go all technical or I can get a blend. And that blend aspect really did intrigue me. So for that reason, I continued with the master's program, and I think has definitely set a strong path in my interest of career and eventually into project management.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And then we have one more question in the chat currently. So what are you doing on your current teams / within your current organization to enable IND initiatives and continue to advocate change for women? I'll open it up to the floor.
Yeah, I can get started. So, I think through the various diversity networks you have, and certainly larger companies probably have more mature processes in those areas, but, I'd say being active in the various kind of affinity networks or interest groups that exist. And so, while you're interviewing, asking, do those types of networks exist in an environment? And then when you join an organization, just being active in them, much like you join a WIST panel, a WIST organization in school. But I think, just taking that initiative to join and really be a part of a community.
I agree with Shelley. Definitely look for those ERG groups if they're, or recruiting, to help recruit, more women into your field, into your company. Definitely get involved in those type of activities. Any volunteer work that they do at your future companies, those are always great places to start.
I would just quickly add, so recruiting was something I started right off. It was very strange. It was a strange feeling to be just like at recruiting fair or a fair 6 months after starting my job, but that I think that definitely helped reconnect with the college. Besides the kind of the resource groups, I got involved with other initiatives at my company. So every month I actually host the all hands that entails like 400 people. So it was all virtual and has been virtual now for a year since I picked up that initiative, but it has given me that confidence to essentially run a complete meeting end to end virtually and just have my name out there. So I think that's also a great way to keep pushing, the boundaries for yourself and for other people as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Neha, that, your reputation and brand get built in various ways. It could be over email, it could be over virtual meetings, it could be over getting involved with the BRGs. One other thing I'd like to add as you sort of start thinking about this and as you grow in your careers, you'll have an opportunity to hire, right? And so in those circles of influence, how can you make the hiring practices more fair and more open so that you can bring on more diversity? So when there's an opportunity of influence, can you help people think differently? So I think thinking long term of driving change, outside of recruiting and these activities is when you're in that position of influence, help everybody see things differently and how and why you need that talent driving change in the organization.
Okay, great. I can ask the next one. So a few of you responded in the chat, but I just wanted to kind of build on it. So is there any women speaker, blogger, website, tech or non-tech that like you encourage others to follow? If you just wanted to expand on what you said in the chat.
Yeah, so I came across this network called the Chief maybe last year. It seems like seems to be a private network for very successful women. I'm not part of the network. I just see it on my LinkedIn, right? And so I went and signed up for the newsletter, and I find that newsletter once a month to be extremely powerful with very insightful thoughts and information that I just am not thinking about, especially in the pandemic, especially with everything that's going on with, I'm a newly minted mom. So as a working parent, how do you balance and how do you think about work-life integration and growth, and how do you overcome biases? And I think it's just very well done. So that's one that I would recommend.
I also love that in my LinkedIn feed, the Chief. Yeah, that's such a good call out. I added in Nancy Duarte. I go into like TED Talk, just rabbit holes sometimes, just loving TED Talks. But in masterclass, I know Sarah Blakely, I think, has a great masterclass. So there's a ton of other obviously great content on that platform too. Not a woman speaker, but I'm a big Malcolm Gladwell and Adam Grant fan.
Did anyone have anything else to add before we move on? All right, then I'll give it back to Jen.
Thank you. So I'm sure that all the panelists have heard the term imposter syndrome and maybe can feel like they have experiences at some point in their academic or professional career that it could be affected. So if those who don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's loosely defined as doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud, feeling like an imposter. So have you ever experienced in a moment of imposter syndrome? How did you overcome it? What strategies might our listeners do to try to avoid and overcome these feelings? Neha, if you're comfortable with starting.
Sure. So the simple answer is yes. But how did I go about, managing that challenge? I think for me, I listened to my gut. I know that's not an easy thing to do for some folks, but I have realized the moment I do, it's led me to something much bigger, and it's actually provided growth in some way. So for me, it's taking the moment that something just doesn't feel right or I'm not able to rub it off, and taking that moment to recognize it, reflect it, and then kind of think about ways I can approach it. Even if it's talking to someone who may not even know how to help, but is willing to listen, I think has helped me personally. So I've always kind of taken those moments and really kind of self-reflect and realize that there is something here, and I just need to bring a voice to it. So that's how I've kind of personally handled it.
I think, Neha, that's just such a great way of putting it. I 100% agree, imposter syndrome exists no matter how much experience you have under your belt. One of the strategies that I think has helped me personally is being prepared. I'm somebody who over the years I've learned if I show up with preparation, that brings confidence in how I'm doing things. And if I'm prepared, I've thought about, let's say it's a meeting with a very senior person. If I know what my goals are, what my outcomes are, what I expect the roadblocks to be, how will I go around them? If I premeditate on what I want the outcomes to be, and I think through what to expect and how that 1 hour of that meeting should go, I come out on the other side with so much success, and I don't feel as much of the sentiment of the imposter syndrome. And I feel like a lot of people just go through life just winging it. And I think just being prepared is half the battle and will lead you to success. there are moments, even without that with all the preparation, you still feel like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm really out of my league. And in that, just, the fact that you're there doing something so uncomfortable, there is so much growth in that moment, because learning truly does happen at the edge of your comfort zone. So I try to take those moments as, a growth moment, and it's a privilege to have some of these. So instead of being uncomfortable, just take it as what a fantastic opportunity to do something uncomfortable. So those are the two things that have helped me.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. I think, taking a moment to pause and kind of reflect for a minute of like, why do you feel uncomfortable? Is it because, you're doing something new? In which case, just taking that choice to celebrate that in a positive way, to say, this is great, I'm learning, and so I think just being intentional about pausing, which frankly can be hard in the moment because you're so heads down, maybe you're so close to something. So I think what Neha said about, just using your network and using those other voices to kind of help ground you in what you're doing. So, I think either someone that's close to your work, or even, I know I rely a lot on some of my other non-IST friends from college, who I think in some way they know you well, and they also have a little bit of distance that can be helpful sometimes to be able to translate things too.
So I think I'm a little different, and I think it really has to go back to my parents and how they always instilled in me and my sisters the confidence, because like I said earlier, we always stood out. We were always the minority of the group. So they really instilled in us to be confident in everything that you do. And like Angela said, prepare. We research, we do a lot of prep work, write down notes, we ask a lot of questions. So I don't know if I've ever really experienced the imposter syndrome, because when I go into meetings or present projects or things, I know I've done the research, I know I've done the work needed to present whatever I'm presenting. And if someone asks a question that I'm unsure of, I'm comfortable saying, oh, I don't know, I didn't look at that. Let me go back and get you some more clarification on that or some more information. So I think my parents really helped me with if I would have had experienced imposter syndrome. But I know this past summer or 2 summers ago, we had an intern that definitely she felt like that. And I took her to the side and definitely just tried to encourage her and say, look, just ask your questions. It's okay. You're not going to have a stupid question. We're not expecting you to know everything. So we want you to ask those questions. We want to train you up so that you can be the best security analyst, cyber engineer, whatever your goal is. So I would have to credit really that to my parents on how they instilled the confidence in me and my sisters to just, you do the work and be proud of what you present and stand by what you present.
That was really well said, and
Thanks,
I want
Shelley.
that confidence.
We all need a Janay in our corner hyping us up.
Oh, you need a Rayella and a Joel. I will definitely credit that to my parents.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm really inspired by that too. I need that. So to go into our next question, with so many social justice issues today, we are increasingly aware of the need for allyship. So specifically right here, we're talking about gender-based allyship. So what are some of the ways that we can be allies and supportive to our peers? And do you have any specific stories to share when you experience this kind of support? And I will start off with Janay, if you wanted to share.
Sure. I think some of the ways you can be an ally is to actively listen to someone who's trying to come to you with a problem that they may be having, not just listen and while they're talking, thinking of your response, actively listening, even if you have to repeat back to make sure that you're understanding what they're trying to say. And sometimes you might not have an answer, so don't always try to fix their problem. Sometimes they just might need to talk it through out loud with someone else and they can come up with the solution themselves. A story that I had a coworker, she was just having a really hard time being able to speak up during team meetings or presenting projects. She was just very uncomfortable and felt like she wasn't being heard. So I just tried to make sure if I was in those meetings, hey, so, Jane, I'll just change your name, Jane, what did you want to say, or how did you feel? What did you think of this process, or what did you think of this vendor presentation? Just to try to make sure she felt included and that someone wanted to hear her opinion. So that would be my story and my recommendations for helping and supporting, actively listening, and don't always try to fix the problem. Sometimes they just need the air to bend.
Okay, great. I'll give the question to anybody else who wants to share.
I think Janay said it well, but I think, just making sure that you're when you see something, say something, frankly, like if there's something that occurs, be it in your workplace, out in a social setting, making sure that you're using your voice to advocate for others. When oftentimes it's tricky situations, and I find myself trying to do it as close to in the moment as possible, so I think ideally it would be an immediate response. And obviously it depends a little bit on the circumstance, but I think, just making sure that you're reaching out to folks and letting them know, you heard what was said, or you don't agree, just letting people know that you kind of support them in that effort too.
Yeah, I think another perspective on the topic is providing mentoring and coaching on handling difficult situations for them. So I had an individual on my team a couple years ago, phenomenal product manager, African-American gay gentleman, and just outstanding work performance, but didn't really know how to navigate, certain large, like I've only worked in large organizations, and navigation in these large organizations is very hard because the org structure is just, not defined as clearly. Like, you'll know who reports to who, but who does what is very unclear. And where the power players are and how decisions get made. So just explicitly creating the time to coach folks on how they can grow in the organization and reach their goals, right? So understanding what is it they're looking to accomplish and what are their personal and professional goals, and how can you be the best support to them? And it comes in different ways, to Janay and Shelley's points. And it could also come in the aspect of making sure that you're giving them the time they need for coaching and growth, because their very specific questions may not be experiences that somebody else has had, and they might be very personal to them, and they need to feel like they're in a safe environment to be able to share that and be able to take the feedback and work on it. So creating that safe environment is truly the right answer. And you do that by listening, by advocating, and by being available.
Okay, great. Thank you for all of your answers. I will move to Jen. She has the next question.
So I have a question that says, have you ever had to change your ways in order to fit in? I'll start with Shelley.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think, I didn't mention this earlier, but I, grew up in central Pennsylvania. And so I'd say State College, it was a pretty familiar place for me, but the diversity of Penn State is something that I absolutely loved, just getting to meet people who were very different from me. And I'd say that certainly transfers into the workplace as well. But I think, we all flex, I'd say, on our day-to-day basis. And I'd say that ability to navigate different social settings and, different environments, and, slightly chameleon-like be able to, amp up your responses appropriately certainly has helped me. And I'd say in a client service, professional services capacity, that's a very, just handy skill set to have, because you're always going to be in different teams. And one of the things I really do love about IST is how group work, oriented the entire thing was. It was so innately baked into the program that I think translation into the workplace was seamless. And I remember, having lunch with like accounting colleagues who, went to Penn State, but it was like the workforce, even at PwC, was a shock to them, of like, oh, how do I operate in this environment? But in IST, that was all we did. And so like, I think you have a good training in how to navigate groups and environments. But so I think, just knowing when to flex.
And just to build off of Shelley real quick, I am an extreme introvert, as a lot of IT people are. And so the group work for me at Penn State definitely helped in coming in and having to work with different silos in IT, whether it's infrastructure, networking, end user services, HR, business partners, learning how to work in those groups and not always taking on all the responsibility and having that control problem, wanting to get everything done so everything's right and you feel confident in everything. So I think IST really helped me tone that down, because I think it would have been a bigger adjustment than when it was if I wouldn't have had that experience at IST doing those group projects and working on those type of things.
And I think you learn a lot about yourself in doing these group projects too, right? Like, are you the person that gravitates to organizing everybody? Are you the person that wants to do everything? Or are you the person that wants to delegate? And so you'll develop your own style. So I feel I completely echo the sentiments that, the program really helped us define and understand. Like, I really had a very hard time holding people accountable and would just want to finish everything off and just get it done with so we get the right grade, right? But that's not the right way to approach it. And when you come to the workforce, having experienced all that, you learn tactics on how to truly make it a group effort. Anyhow, so yeah, completely echo the statements.
Fortunately or unfortunately, those same people in the, they're in the workforce too.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts to share? What advice would you give young women entering the tech industry profession? So Neha, I'm going to start with you if you're comfortable.
Sure. So for me, I think, my differences, even though I never thought they could really give me the strength, I have definitely learned to learn from my differences and make them my strengths. So I think as you continue to explore network, use that to your advantage. Don't be shy to share your story. You'd be surprised that people actually want to hear your story, and they're willing to sit down and really get to know you. So definitely think of that when you go to any networking event, any career fair, any job interview, even a new project within your current company. Just kind of continue building that, and you will definitely find those mentors that you really want to hold on to and continue to grow your relationship with them.
To build off of what Neha said, definitely try to find yourself a mentor in your company. Even if it's not a woman, if it's a male, just find someone who's in the field or the area that you want to be in, because you can learn a lot from them. I was lucky enough to have two mentors, one that was assigned to me and one that I found on my own. And I was able to get two different perspectives. I found someone who was in the security world. He's been there for 10 plus years, so I learned a lot from him. But the assigned mentor was from the business side of things. So I didn't really have any business background, didn't really take any business classes while at Penn State. So I got to see how that side of the company works and how they think and how IT and business tie together and how we have to work together to make sure the company strives and continues to grow and produce what we need to produce. So definitely find yourself mentors, and don't be afraid to speak up. Let them know you're here, have a voice, be confident, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, I completely echo everything that's been said. I think the one thing that I would add is that I think really resonated for me when I read Lean In. And I feel like I remember like where I was when I read the book. It was like so impactful, but it was it was a chapter of like, don't leave before you leave. And I think like some, especially people who are innately planners, or just thinking down the road of, how would I handle this or that? And you're like talking yourself out of positions or roles that, you maybe haven't even been offered yet. So I think just kind of keep yourself in check as to like, keep focus on the near term and the things you can control. And then, life is going to happen, and you're going to move, you're going to have aging parents, you're going to have children, like these things are going to happen, and roll with it as it happens. So, don't try to plan out the next X amount of years. It's not even good, good energy to spend. So, just kind of embrace the here and now, and like they say in the book, like put your foot on the gas as much as you want to in the moments you can, and don't worry about the things that are down the road.
Shelly, you're 100% right. I remember that quote specifically because it was all about, oh my God, when am I going to have a baby? Oh my God, I will need to make sure I have enough maternity leave. Like you think about these things, and was 100% resonated with me as well. I think everyone here has raised some really thoughtful things that we should all take to heart. The one thing that I've realized is our careers are long, right? Like Shelly and I have been working for 15 years. And we have another 15 to go. Like I'm not retiring anytime soon, unfortunately. So one thing I have realized is you have to find your passion. And so if you don't like what you're doing, try something else, right? It's not the end of the world to go try different things, take the risks, but at the end of the day, create a niche of work that gives you happiness. Because if you're unhappy at work, it's going to translate into everything else. So you have to find a way to just love your job and have fun with it, because that is the long-term plan. Otherwise, it's just going to be, you're not going to, like we spend more than 40, 50 hours a week at work, right? And so finding that satisfaction from our job, I think is so important. And I can tell you, it's taken me a while to get there. I did not love my first job. I kind of got there with my second. With my third and fourth organizations, I loved it. Now, I am like in such a great spot personally for my mental health because I love what I do. And it's taken me a decade to get there. But now that's my niche. And I know this is the area that gives me happiness. This is how I can evolve. And this is how I can bring more value to the world. And so just know that it's a long road ahead, but the road hopefully will be fun for you as well. Turn it back to you, Jane and Jen.
That was very well said and inspiring. So thank you. And thank you to everyone for participating tonight. A special thank you to the IST Alumni Office and Office of Inclusion and Diversity Engagement for co-planning WIST's Lean In panel conversation this year. Thank you to all of our panelists who have paved the way for us. We look forward to continuing the conversation to support all diversity, equity, and inclusion in the future. Please look for more information on the college's final identity talks for the spring semester, Strength and Diversity, on April 5th. Thank you guys for an amazing evening. Have a good night.